Hey, everybody, welcome back to Inside Scoop. This is a loss prevention magazine podcast. And I'm here today I'm so intimidated by Dave Thompson because he is such a pro at his podcast. It's like a little competition happening. Dave, can I live up to your expectations for
No
podcast hosts?
competition. This is all supportive industry friends here. I'm
We're-
just faking it as I go anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
we're
got
on the same team. We're on the same team. So I'm here with Dave Thompson and Nate Frazier, and we will talk about what's happening with WZ. And I'm sure like that was the buzz over the holiday seasons because that was huge news. WZ was acquired by Red Knot, which is Nate's company. So what I'd like to do for our listeners is talk through what does that mean? Right? Like I'm sure folks are like, oh my gosh, new ownership. But Dave, you've been around for a long time, so that's your steady Eddie. But what else is changing? Like what can people expect? So we're gonna dive into that in depth. But first, let's talk football. I know Dave's like, do we have to? Man, what a season.
I have my little job stress ball here. It's a good thing that WZ trains trauma informed interviewing because I've had to go through some PTSD over the last week, but so have you. The Bears
Oh my
have
gosh.
problem,
Well,
but
we had zero expectations, so it was all good. We beat the Packers. That's all I needed. That was my Super Bowl for the year.
Nate's team has been playing golf for the last 4 weeks or so, so it's fine.
Yeah, and I'm used to that too. I'm a Bengals fan living in Pittsburgh, so I can
Oh,
talk to you all about all sorts of trauma
Yeah.
on another call if you'd like that too. So
It was
yeah.
interesting. There was a press conference about with the GM and the owner this week, and so just why not we're going to talk about effective communication today, but just kind of cool to see how journalists are asking questions and how people are deflecting answers or what intentional words they're using in their responses.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you guys, speaking of communication, did you see Mendoza with his post-game interview? That was amazing. That guy has great communication skills.
he does. He's sharp. He gets it. He's clearly about the right stuff, and
Yeah.
it's amazing to see what a leader like that can do with the right people around him. He's
Hey,
Yeah.
amazing.
Mendoza, we're always looking for new instructors. Oh,
That's what,
He could do it.
yeah, no doubt he could. Yeah,
He's got a great LinkedIn presence already.
he does. Yes, he does.
Well, speaking of communication, that's a great segue, Nate. We didn't even set that up. And leadership, like I said, I know folks were a little bit like, wow, what is going to happen with WZ? Talk to us a little bit first before we get into that, your backgrounds and how did this all come about? So Nate, let's start with you. Like, what is your background in the industry?
Yeah, Steph, and thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Uh, long time reader, first time
great.
I've been able to speak with this platform with this team out there. But yeah, I mean, if you circle back, that's really where I started. So I started in target asset protection in college, and
Yeah,
I was one of the last to go through the original asset protection program at Eastern Kentucky University before it was shifted into Homeland Security. It's a wonderful program. Still very connected there. Great professors, great faculty that sort of support in there, and it was just a good time to dive in there. And so I started my career at Target. Uh, Once I graduated, went to Saks. I managed an LP program at Saks, and then had a really unique opportunity at GameStop. And this would have been in 2004, early 2004. The company was growing very rapidly, opening 250, 500 stores a year. They had purchased one of their competitors that was probably the originator of allowing people to use games and systems as credit.
yeah,
And so they kind of engineered this margin problem in a way different way that most in electronics had done prior to that. And so they just were on a rocket ship, and had a tremendous time there. I worked a lot of different jobs at GameStop, but ultimately ended up in a regional LP manager role. And in my last role was in Los Angeles. I had the Southwest, so Phoenix, Hawaii, Guam, LA, Vegas, that area out there. So a lot of action. It was an incredible place to work. I spent most of my 20s there. It was absolute blast, and we learned a lot there too. And from a retail risk perspective, GameStop was probably on the forefront of risk, particularly because at the time, systems and handhelds and video games were really hot commodity, easy to move. We carried a lot of cash at the time because of what they did. And so, comparison to other things in the space, it was high risk, but we would put a store anywhere. At the time, I mean, everybody was playing video games. They still do, and that could work, and you could build a profitable business in just about any neighborhood in America. And so it was really fun. In late 2009, I had the opportunity to take over East Coast operations for the LP team at Abercrombie and Fitch. And so I had 4 years there, did a bit of time on the East Coast, and then I eventually took over all international LP. So that was Europe, Middle East, Asia, new country entry. We started franchise systems, things there, and it was a great experience. I learned a ton, and that really laddered me into kind of getting into maybe a little more non-traditional space there. I did a few years with one of Berkshire Hathaway's retail divisions. It was called Helzberg Diamonds. And so that was a bit more enterprise risk, a lot of physical security at that point. And because of logistics opportunities there, it provided some opportunities to get deeper into the operating side of the business too. And so flipped from there to Mattress Firm. That was when they were buying their major competitors on the East and West Coast. So I did that for a short period. And after about 10 or 11 months, we got bought out by a South African firm, and which was a pretty amazing experience. We were in the middle of an insane merger integration at that point, and they saw the value there. And at the time, Mattress Firm was a public company. They took them private, and so did a lot of work for them. They had a big retail presence in Europe, Conforama, Benson and Beds, a lot of other retailers across the European landscape there, and it gave us an opportunity to start, bringing our operating model into other parts of the world. And we had a lot of success there. And so through that, I was one of the founders of Steinhoff Risk, which I think most of the listeners probably know as Epic Risk now. So I was one of the founders of that team, and which eventually got sold over to Epic, and spent some time there, and had a pretty amazing opportunity to come back closer to home. And I took over the head of franchise operations at GNC, so General Nutrition Centers there. Had a lot of success there. They were public at the time. Got promoted there, and if we had a longer podcast, I could give you all the gory details on how we did that. A lot of what I do and a lot of my systems around operations, expansion, growth, and sort of scale, I learned across that sort of career trajectory, and I've had some amazing leaders that walked me through that, and so had a lot of success there. Again, public at the time, and when COVID happened, we had an opportunity to sell the business private in 2020, and I was on the deal team that did that too. And so that was really my first major foray into private equity and this sort of private investment world. And so I've gotten to see a lot of the good, bad, ugly, everything else that goes along with that world too. And I think some of the perception earned, some of it not in reality. And so it's given me a good opportunity to sort of navigate what is salacious and what is real. And it's been really fun. And so the last few years, I've been operating my own platform primarily as an operating partner. But we started, spending time really looking at companies that we thought had the right to win, that had the opportunity to scale, that we could help and bring our model and our experience to help drive. And we've had a lot of success doing that over the last few years, and primarily in the health, wellness, fitness side of the world. But we've always had this desire to find things that are supportive of retail and retail adjacent. And then of course by sort of, I guess, relation now with Wicklander, also across the sort of corporate resiliency risk and the law enforcement spaces as well. And so had the opportunity to connect with Dave and Shane and Wayne about a year ago and start a very interesting conversation. And I've been a client of Wicklander's for over 25 years. So I'm intimately aware of how quality the product already is. And I think when we put our heads together, we just saw that there was a real opportunity to help move this into the next chapter too.
Love it. Yeah, you've got a super interesting background. I think we probably could do a whole other podcast just talking about your learnings over your career. Yeah, because you've been, so many different roles. And I think a lot of folks in LP sort of like think, oh, there's just this one column that I can work in, right? There's so many different directions you can go because we wear so many hats in LP. A lot of skills.
It's an interesting thing, Steph. If you're willing to learn and ask the right questions, most people want to help you. Most people want to move you in there. And for the LP practitioner, what they do is so critical, not just the four-wall profit, but to also how the retailers value their businesses, how they think about scale, is how quickly they can move. And then, people still run our businesses. And so their safety and sort of the resiliency when something does happen is really critical to maintaining continuity. And so GameStop was great for that, Steph. We had the opportunity to learn a lot of other areas of the business.
Mhm.
And we had an amazing training team there that helped facilitate that. And then, and then Abercrombie particularly, we were really involved in sort of the financial planning, the financial strategy side of the business. Particularly with the international growth, and so it gave you an opportunity to get deep into real estate and finance and logistics and inventory, and that was a big part of Berkshire too. So yeah, I've had great opportunities to learn that, and I think that if you're willing to raise your hand and maybe spend a little extra time than the person next to
Mhm.
you get the opportunity to do so.
So Dave, back when you were at Abercrombie and you met Nate, did you know, oh, we're going to be working this closely together in the future? Like, was there like a chemistry? Like, what happened?
Yeah, well, when you're both standing outside a store with your shirts off, like it's natural that you're going to build chemistry.
Spring
No,
cologne.
yeah. No, I know it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, this stuff, like good
Yeah.
people tend to find a way to reconnect or
Yeah.
stay aligned, and this industry is no different. Like there's so many just good folks that I owe a lot to like taking me under their wing and been good friends and mentors. And I've known Nate now for about, I don't know, 15 years ish or so. And when there was an opportunity of where we're going to move forward with WZ, he was my first call to figure out, hey, what should I be thinking about personally, and what can we do for the brand? So yeah, I remember our first meeting, and we don't have to go too detailed into it. We met at a Starbucks in Florida, and I thought I was gonna have the opportunity to work with Nate, and then they brought me on board, and he decided to take on the international business right away and passed me off to another good friend, Tim Lipinski. And there's your shout out, Tim. I know he wants it over at Hellsberg,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's cool, and I was thinking as Nate was going through his background, even in the LP space, I've had the opportunity to work in just different verticals, whether it's like pharmacy or supply chain, big box, specialty. There's so many career paths to take. And I think one of my biggest learning moments was I worked for Kohl's department stores for a while. Really, a lot of good people I met along the way there. And it was around the time that Kohl's bought out some of the Mervyn's locations.
Mhm.
And I got to go to California for a couple months over the summer, which already was exciting because I was in Philadelphia at the time. But just to learn how much of an operational impact we can make on shrink and on people and in a leadership perspective when you're converting one brand to another. And there's so many learning points along the way, but that one stuck out as Nate was kind of going through his background.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun thing about LP, and I think why I stuck with it so long, and I'm sure you guys too, is that there's just so many different things to it. It's not just catching shoplifters. It's a lot more than that, obviously. So let's talk about WZ a little bit. And with the are we calling it an acquisition? Is that what we're calling it? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's generally. I mean, Dave's was there before and hereafter, but yeah, we can call it
Yeah.
whatever he's comfortable with. So.
Yeah. And Dave, you've got a new role, which is, you want to explain it a little bit?
Sure. I took over CEO role, which was great and humbling and really cool. And following in the steps of, Shane Sturman had that role, and we had obviously Shane and Wayne, both partners that been here
Mhm.
for about 3 decades each, which is pretty incredible. And it's cool to be in the footsteps of Dave Zalowski and Doug Wicklander, and then Wayne and Shane, and a lot of responsibility there. But it's exciting. And again, the partnership with Nate, what's been nice is being empowered to continue to use the legacy and foundation of the principles of WZ and double down on those to move forward. So, my role is, to continue to look at day-to-day business operations and kind of look at the growth and vision of what can WZ really start to grow into that maybe we haven't explored just yet, but stay grounded, like, doubling down on the science that we've been involved in the last decade, evidence-based practices, making sure we're continuing to attract top talent, elite talent to our team so we can support practitioners. And I think the other thing, and that we talked about this before you hit record, but I think about my career, I remember the personal interactions with every WZ team member along like
Mhm.
touch points of my career. And Doug and Dave started this business by doing that, right? Being
Right.
available and accessible to practitioners to help and support. And so I know Nate and I both, we never want to lose that access and that, customization and the personal touch. So that's kind of my role. And then really working with Nate to look at maybe some things outside the box we haven't explored before.
Awesome. Yeah, and what I want to do is just sort of reassure people too that that personal touch is not changing with WZ. I mean, I can tell you my personal experience way back when I first went through my level one class is I made connections with all of the instructors, right? And I had four instructors in my class. It was kind of unusual. But I got to know them each personally. I got all of their phone numbers, I got all of their emails, and I was able to use them as like informal mentors as I grew my, investigations skills. And I think even back of house, like your admin team and how they follow up with each student, like just the amount of care that you guys take with your students when they come through has always been to me sort of that just really stands out with WZ is their custom kind of their customer service or student service.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this to Nate in just a second, but I think I know we're vested in everybody's success, right? Obviously, we want the
Yeah.
method and the systems to work. But truly the business is built not just to run a business, but we want to make sure investigators are supported with the right tools to be successful. And we're never smarter than the room, right? So when you get a collective group of investigators that are giving us feedback and saying, hey, this is what's new, this is what we're dealing with now. We're dealing with trauma and workplace violence, employee relations, and de-escalation. We need some help, and we
Right.
can now hear that and kind of evolve what we're providing from a curriculum standpoint, or honestly, even hear how people want to learn is different today than it
Hmm.
was 10, 15, 20 years ago, whether it's virtual
For
or
sure.
technology. But what you just said, I'm going to pass this to Nate because when we went through this process of looking at potential partners for WZ, we were really intentional. Um, and Nate, we didn't fall into this by accident. We wanted to make sure this was the right match to protect the legacy of WZ. But I could tell you, and Nate can expand on this, the first 10 minutes of our meeting with Nate was him talking about his first interactions in class with WZ because everybody recalls those moments. So Nate, I'll let you kind of expand on that, Nate. But I think it's important to know your leadership is also been experienced to the same thing that your listeners have been
Yeah,
experienced.
yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, Steph, so not wildly different, right? So Shane taught my first class. Uh,
Yeah.
and it was funny. I was talking to him a couple weeks ago and asking him if he remembered. I don't think he did. He was being very gracious about it, but it was in Florence, Kentucky. I was working for Saks at the time, and yeah, I'll never forget it. I mean, and I think about my evolution through the core product. Okay, so the method through the WZ system. Let's talk about that really quickly, which is what the business was built on. Um, it has lasted and excelled and grown for 4 decades because it works and because it's effective. And so, to your earlier point about the accessibility and about the true care and the time that we spend with the students, that's never going to change because ultimately the system will only continue to work if the practitioners understand it and can put it in practice. And so that's what I love about it. That's what I love. It's so real. I had aha moments. I told the team about this a couple of weeks ago. When I took advanced, so the second level out there, I probably had 150 interviews under my belt at that point, and there were things that I was doing that worked, but maybe I didn't fully understand why I was doing them or why they were working. And so as you get through this sort of experience side of the module, and you can continue to build this, you just get stronger and faster and more effective. And what Dave and the team have done to evolve it, particularly over the last decade, is really amazing and timely and important. And not just from a relevant standpoint, but from what is right and how we are going to teach the practitioner and how we're going to get them ready, for the rest of the 2020s and 2030s and the next 40 years, across this. And then, there's so much, we just got back from NRF. There's so much thought, and rightfully so, there's so much thought and time and capital being spent on artificial intelligence, around machine learning, around these LLMs. And I think that's right. And I think we should be spending time on that from an efficiency standpoint. But there is also the counter reality that it's also zapping some of this opportunity that some of our earlier practitioners had to get better and faster and more experienced on their own because it's
Mhm.
taking this away out of that. And so I see Wicklander, Zalowski, I see WZ as being the balance of that and continuing to strengthen our practitioners and the students and their ability to deflect or reduce the human risk side of this too, because that's something a computer can't do. And
Right.
there's always going to be that element in our space. And listen, obviously great legacy in retail, amazing growth, great legacy in law enforcement, but there's a lot of businesses out there that can use this help, can use this assistance, can use this curriculum, can use what Dave and Doug and Shane and Wayne built with their consumer facing businesses too. And it's a big world outside of that, in hospitality, in franchise, in restaurant, in you name it, anything that has to interact with the general public out there, or has access to high value, things that might drive risk there. And so, yeah, to Dave's point, I think it's really important. And then, I say this a lot, and I think people understand what I'm saying whenever I explain this to them. But I was one of the early adopters of the CFI program as well, and to understand the real psychology, the biology behind why that works, what we're able to do with the certification, and see the pride that comes from the LP leader, the AP leader, or a law enforcement officer, anybody that falls into this investigation realm, that they've spent this time, they've invested this in there because they want to be the best at what they do. And that really gets me excited, because that's the type of person that I want to be around. That's the type of person that I want to spend my time with and invest in too.
Hmm.
Because not only are they taking their craft really seriously, but they understand the magnitude of what they can do for their vertical and for their space. And I think Dave and I, it's a big part of what we're going to focus on as we move forward is how can we help that practitioner be even more efficient? How can we help them grow their career, be more fulfilled out of what they're doing outside of that too? And I think CFI is a great place to start. And listen, I've used the method and the system in all other parts of my life too. I've used it in boardrooms. I've used it on public earnings calls. I've used it in negotiations. I've used it in my home. And so the mechanics of what make the system great are universal. And I think that could be really exciting to other verticals and other platforms that need it too.
Yeah, absolutely applies in so many different aspects of not just your career, but your life.
For
Good
sure.
point. I hope you don't use it at home very often, Nate.
I have two boys, so occasionally I have to. But yeah, I try to limit it whenever I do.
Yeah,
So
it happens. It happens. But what I'm hearing is it sounds like, you're the legacy, you guys are respecting the legacy, and that, moving forward, that's always top of mind. It sounds like CFI is going to remain a focus. Elite Training Day, still going to be focused on those things.
Yeah, I would say focus is a good word, but I think those are all foundational to what we can expand on. I think
Right.
legacy is there, but this is not your grandfather's WZ. We're gonna keep on rolling. So we're excited, and I know we're gonna have a CFI exclusive town hall coming up soon to talk about some cool stuff coming forward specifically for the CFI community. It's funny too, is you guys are talking about, Nate's first class and this level two, and him and I now, as he's being reintegrated into our curriculum, we've
Mhm.
changed a lot. And so that's the other thing that is not going away. Part of our responsibility as a partner to the industry is to be the conduit of research to practice. And so, the things that we might have been training 10 years ago, we may be not training that today. And it may be the same thing 5 years, 10 years from now. And so we take that responsibility greatly, is that we're going to make sure we're consistently evolving. And we did that with the CFI program and
Mhm.
launched that about a year ago. A lot of work thanks to the late Joe Wolf, who did a lot of the effort on that program. But David Lund and the II team have killed it with the CFI Evolve, and it's been really cool to see people. I think Steph, were you part of the Wolf Pack, right? That got some of the
Yep.
original
Yeah.
CFI, and it's cool to see people who have embraced that designation, not just as letters after the name, but as a real commitment to continuing education. And we've got a lot of CFIs going back through the program now, so they can understand how has research changed? What is the core of investigative interviewing?
Absolutely. I think people who are successful in this industry, any industry, but especially this industry, you've got to be curious. You've got to always be learning. And I'd love to hear that WZ is constantly evolving, making the process better. Like not only just making sure that it's being ethical, which is, hey, that's definitely foundational, but how do we get better? How do we get more admissions, but still remain ethical? I love that you guys are totally invested in that.
I had
Yeah.
a funny thing last week, Steph. I know we mentioned we had an NRF, and I
Yeah.
had a good friend who I've known for a lot of years, who is a CFI, and wanted to talk about CFI Evolved. And to Dave's point, some of us that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years may assume we know everything. Uh, we may have enough practice under our belts to think we've got it nailed, and that may be true. But because the world has evolved so much, and the folks that we're tasked with protecting and the companies that we're tasked with allowing them to operate the way they want to operate have changed so much, then we've got to evolve too. We had an opportunity to. He had some of his team that had already gone through the Evolve program, and so we called them. And the feedback that we got from that team was so amazing, particularly those that are still in the field as practitioners. They may not be, department heads. They may not be, they may not have rotated to other parts of the community out there. And so I would encourage anyone that is maybe a legacy CFI or has been around for a while to get reengaged with David and that team. The the new parts of it from an academic, from a research, and from a practical aspect are amazing. And the feedback that we're getting, and even having some of the recent evolves give to their bosses is just testament to that. And we're gonna to Dave's point, we're gonna talk a lot about this and expanding that capability and our commitment to their careers even further on this upcoming CFI call. So if you do have any CFIs that are listening, be on the lookout for an invite from David and Emily, and please do join us. I don't think you're going to want to miss it.
I'm going to
Awesome.
throw out, if I could, Steph, because I know you've got a lot of leaders that listen to this and that read the magazine. And I know we've been honored since Zalowski forever ago, writing a column in the magazine. And you can see
Yeah.
that the consistency of content, but the evolution of content along the way. But just a challenge to leadership out there. Sometimes what we've seen is we've got a lot of people going to our level one WZ program. They're earning that certificate so they can do their job and do it the right way. And then they go back to their organizations and they've got supervisors and mentors who haven't been trained in a decade, or even honestly at this point, 3 years. And they're trying to give them feedback and they're hearing things like, what do you mean you don't use rationalization right now? What do you mean when people look to the left and the right, aren't they a liar? Like
Yeah,
there's a
right.
disconnect. And so just a challenge. If you're in a leadership seat or if you supervise your team, either are you the right person or are you as equally educated on the feedback that you're giving, and just a
Yeah.
challenge out there for that group.
Agreed 110%. It'd sort of be like having an HR department who is not up to date on all the new hiring laws, right? Like you would expect those people to be up to date. Why wouldn't you expect your
Without a doubt.
AP team to be up to date on interviewing, you know?
Yeah.
Steph, I did when I was a chief operating officer at GNC. I sort of engineered my weeks around that, and
Hmm.
so I had specific meetings on Friday afternoons to get ready for the next week. And then on Monday, I had a pretty strict set of directives around KPIs and reports for Monday morning because as you start getting into your leadership meetings, you start getting in time with your teams, your touch bases, executive meetings outside of there, you don't want to go in blind. It's the same idea as when you go in to do your job or you go into a meeting, you go into something that's a critical, some kind of conversation that has consequences. If you know what you're talking about, if you have the evidence, if you understand the sort of back end and why that works, you're just more effective, and we can take the guesswork out of it. The same thing applies to how current the research and the training is that you use to be really excellent at your job.
Hmm.
Preparation matters, and in some cases, it matters more than anything else. And this is no different from that.
The simple
Absolutely.
takeaway for that stuff, sorry, but let's throw this one out there because it's if you are still thinking that when you get a denial during an interview, you're going to put your hand up and turn your head and try to shut somebody up and make it confrontational, call me. You need to come back to
Yeah.
the meeting. So,
Yes, please do. We'll help you
Here's
in
your
more ways than
sign.
one. Yes.
Here's a sign that you need some training if you're
right.
okay.
Yes.
Hey, so we were at the big show last week, and I have to ask this, and I, you guys, I'm sure you heard all the buzz. Was literally I could throw a snowball in that expo and hit a booth that was touting something about AI.
Mhm.
Like AI was the dominating topic in
There
that
was. Yeah.
that expo. How is AI touching you all? How is it touching the interview process? Is it or anything that you're concerned about?
Yes to all of it. And I'll to add on here. I think Nate mentioned this earlier, ignoring AI is a bad move right now, right?
Yeah.
You got to embrace the technologies, can make you more efficient, it can help your thought process. There's some really strong benefits right now for investigators to use from a maybe a strategy and preparation standpoint, do not put your case details into an open AI platform if the legal counsel hasn't told you yet.
Yeah.
There's some really cool stuff out there. I've been talking to a few folks that in the academic space that are studying how AI is integrated into investigative interviewing. And it's not perfected yet, where there's a lot of issues with hallucinations and data security. But there's talks on using AI as almost a secondary interviewer to check an interviewer on, hey, what questions should you ask further? What contradictions in evidence exist?
Mhm.
There's good AI usage right now to even critique interview statements or full interview transcript and provide some feedback. We've got some pretty cool stuff, I think, that we'll see in the next little while coming from our side to make sure that we're also supporting investigators with the use of that technology. But um, don't let it make you lazy. Like, help it make you efficient, but we still need to put the human element into this process. And the last thing I'll say, I have a lot of caution right now and concern about AI interviews themselves, where people are
Mhm.
using some type of chatbot or agent to do a fact gathering mission even. There's a lot of research that, AI wants to make you feel good. If you went into any of them right now, chat and said, "Hey, what do you think about this idea?" Its first response is going to be, "Dave, what a great idea. You should do this, this, and this." And that same philosophy has been found to actually contaminate memories
Mhm.
and kind of falsely confirm a statement that you're saying as making it more accurate. And so using AI can do the same or contribute to the same errors that an improper interview can contribute to. So a lot
Yeah.
going on there. And I know, Nate, we talked a lot about this last week, but I'll let you head on to that
Yeah,
piece.
Steph, I agree with everything that Dave said. He's certainly the expert on the criminal process side of it, and then the scientific side of the interviewing too. And I'll share a couple things just from a practical standpoint. So, I was in a very fortunate place in one of my earlier roles to make a lot of the early AI implementation mistakes. I had a wonderful CIO partner, and we had some big wins out of it too. I rolled traffic counters out in the GNC in 2021 for the first time. We were able to use Microsoft Azure as one of our partners and really test this sort of machine learning, sort of LLM, in a way
Mhm.
to discover hidden relationships. And we did a lot of very positive work around in-store conversion, around engineering payroll the right way, around things that were really material cost, either benefit or reduction, and making the company more profitable, right? That's really the goal of it out there. We also did some really great things post that around training new associates as they got hired and things of that nature. It's just amazing. To Dave's point, though, the LLMs are public. And so if you use Claude or Grok or GPT, it is not protected for you as an investigator, you as anybody that has any sort of corporate responsibility, officers, executives, department heads. Certainly, if you've got any sort of fiduciary duty, you've got to be very careful. And we're seeing that more and more in litigation and in the criminal justice process side of it. That said, that doesn't scare Dave and I. One of the things that really excited me about this opportunity to acquire WZ was the leadership has 43 years worth of success in curriculum and advancement in knowledge and case reports and investigations and statements and video and things that go all the way back to VHS and Laserdisc and everything else out of there. So we've already grabbed all that. We're working on something that I think will by far and away surpass anything that's in the market right now, partially because nobody can replicate it. It's just not possible. There's no one else that can do it out there. And so we'll talk about that a little bit with the CFIs on the call out there. That likely will be something specific for them. We won't take that to the gym pop and won't allow an LLM to pull against it or anything like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
Dave's right. We have some very aggressive plans on how we will use AI internally to make the practitioner more effective too.
Nice.
One last thing with that that's kind of neat is AI as a training supplement is something we piloted last year. Really good
Mhm.
feedback. We don't want it to replace instructor-led sessions. We don't want to replace the live and more subjective conversations that people can have. But we piloted a program last year where we were training folks on really question formulation, developing rapport with maybe a hostile, like a witness or a whistleblower, and then
Mhm.
gave them access to an AI avatar to role play and get
Yeah.
feedback on everything from what types of questions did you ask? Were you a good active listener? And it was on a video. So did you make good eye contact? What was your tone like? What was your facial expressions like? And that was a pilot and went really well. And so for the listeners, there's some cool stuff coming that, we don't want to replace the learning experience. We want to enhance
Mhm.
that and make it more accessible to folks across the board.
Right.
I love where you're going with that because I found as an instructor that one of the gaps was people just don't like to do role play. They feel awkward with it, they feel shy.
Yeah.
And so, okay, how do you get them to practice? Okay, they can go do it in a mirror, but there's no feedback. So I think this AI piece is really, it's going to fill a gap that has been
Yeah.
there.
And
Um,
objective feedback, right? Like Steph,
yeah,
for some global organizations, you've got a regional director or whatever giving feedback in the Northeast different than somebody in the
That's
Southwest. And
right.
now you got inconsistency across the organization. So it's
absolutely.
how can we provide consistent feedback? And then honestly, from a liability standpoint, now we can put a stamp on this investigator has been trained and now has shown they can execute an interview in an evidence-based way on a whatever annual basis or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, versus I'm sure the three of us all went through this process of like go to a course, then go out there and try it in the wild and have your
Hmm.
supervisor sign off on you after X amount of interviews. And that's all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like the Wild West back in the day.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
good
speed
times.
matters too, Steph. I mean, so for our purposes, it's around efficiency. It's around
Hmm.
how quick can I get you proficient as well. And
Right.
so I think Dave's got some great plans. I know the team do too. And then we've just got simple stuff that we have processes that we're going to use AI to clean up. Has nothing to do with practitioner or training or anything that maybe is probably even remotely interesting to the viewers of this. But yeah, we've got some things that we can do that make WZ a more efficient operation too. And so we're in the process of actually rolling some of that out right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If you're an interviewer worried about AI replacing you, um, first of all, embrace AI so you know how it can help you, but you have the human element that AI doesn't have empathy right now. AI is not going to disagree with you. So, I think
Mhm.
leaning into what makes the human experience different than the technology is really important for interviewers right now.
Agree.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really interesting time that we're in, for sure. I find the topic fascinating. So I'm going to close on this one. It's like a pie in the sky question, and you guys are going to be like, oh boy, where do you see WZ in 5 years?
Man, I got a lot of answers for that one right now. I think number one, we're still here for you, right? We're not going
Mhm.
away. And so WZ will only become our hope is a more consistent touch point in the lifelong learning process of an investigator. Right now, a lot of folks come to us to kind of onboard and get into the initial phases of interviewing, and hopefully
Mhm.
they come to an advance, and hopefully they get through their CFI designation. But we really see ourselves as a lifelong supporter of professional education and continued education. I think from a curriculum standpoint, we're seeing more and more requests in employee relations and human resources and de-escalation and trauma and
Mhm.
work. You got some of your listeners that are having conversations with employees on suicidal ideation. I mean, there's stuff all across the board that LP is no longer LP. It's enterprise risk, and there's so much that falls under their landscape there. And we're not teaching interview interrogation. We're teaching effective communication. And so I think we'll continue to grow on how we can support in every one of those tasks. The second piece is what we just talked about, but leveraging technology to make it more accessible,
Mhm.
more consistent, more objective feedback. And I think we'll continue to grow internationally. We've got a good international footprint right now, but a lot of your listeners have partners outside of the US that are maybe not just literally talking a different language, but talking a different interview language. And there's no reason we're not consistent across the board. So, and the other last thing I'll just leave with, CFI is incredible. We're going to continue to double down on that. But I don't think we're going to stop there. So I think there'll be more certification opportunities and some other cool stuff coming down the way. But Nate, I know Nate's a good pie in the sky guy.
Yeah,
So
I think you nailed it. I'll mention two other things, Steph, that I know to be true, and we are going to do in the next 3 to 5 years. So, the response over the last few weeks has been amazing from adjacent industries, people that I've got relationships with, not just private equity and not just from my experiences, but through the networking there too. So, I think that what I mentioned earlier around any business that is consumer facing has um, this sort of risk touch point, right? These conversations that have consequences. They have need for investigative interviewing. They have need for de-escalation. They have need for, in some cases, to Dave's point, some of these trauma related curriculum that we've driven in here that is really important right now. And so I can tell you in the next 3 to 5, a major expansion point for us is going to be using the core, the things that a lot of your listeners are already great at and already have experience in, and taking them to other verticals. And so that's going to be medical. It's going to be franchise, deeper into food, deeper into hospitality, deeper into gaming, things like that, because mechanically it is very similar to the retail practitioner. And so that opens up a lot of opportunity. It opens up a lot of opportunity for your listeners out there as well. As the CFI designation and the WZ certification becomes more ubiquitous across really the U.S. commerce landscape, and we're going to drive that in there in a big way. That's a major plan of ours. And then the other thing that we've already got in the works is we're making a really concerted effort to drive deeper into veteran education, particularly active duty military that's preparing to transition into civilian life. And we'll have a lot more to share with that here very soon. But we're pushing into where we're preferred provider for that education. We have wonderful vets throughout the industry, throughout both law enforcement and loss prevention out there. We want to make that easier, more accessible, and more effective for them too. And so we're working with a lot of sister organizations on that already. Obviously, we've got access to the GI Bill and some other things that can reduce funding and make this a lot faster for folks to get certified and really get a jump start on their career when they graduate out. And so I think people will be impressed with that and hopefully excited. And I know that's something that's really important to us as well.
I got to say one last thing. It probably goes without saying, but it's important to say it that, our partnership with the magazine and LP Foundation and these, that's not going anywhere either. If anything, I think this gives us the opportunity to further support the education of your readers and your listeners of, we want to be this consistent touch point along their entire career path. And I know you at the magazine have done a really good job of trying to make sure it's accessible for that first line LP person early in their career and for the pyramid head. And we think we can support along the way. So these industry partnerships that have really helped WZ have a platform. We want to continue to, again, I keep saying double down, but there's no reason that we shouldn't be doing that with groups like yours. So that's not going away either.
Agreed.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to seeing how even our relationship can grow as you guys grow too, right? We want to support you, and we do have a great relationship. Dave, you've been doing a great job writing these last few years that I've been involved with, and very easy to edit, by the way.
And always hitting the deadline.
Always hit that deadline. We won't go there, Dave. But no, it was really great talking with you guys, and I hope the listeners took some things away here. I know I did. I learned a few things about where your plans are headed, which is fantastic. I feel confident that WZ is growing, and I feel that you guys are in good hands with Nate. I think it's all good. All these things have been all good. So I feel better, and I hope our listeners do too.
We're
I was a little nervous, but I'm not nervous anymore.
We're pumped up. Yeah. I mean, I have the kind of cool benefit, I guess, of being on both sides of this, right? I've been here now for a little while, and I get to be part of the future. And so I'm confident and excited and inspired. So hopefully that relates to those people that are listening.
Awesome. And I love the energy. Nate brings energy. You seem like you're energized, Dave. So I love it. Absolutely love it. So thank you again so much for being here and talking to the listeners. And I hope to come back and have another podcast with you guys down the road after, things have been sunk in for maybe 6 months from now. We'll see how things are going. And, but again, thank you. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Steph. Thank you.